We begin tonight with breaking news. A passenger jet landing at Reagan National in Washington has collided with a military helicopter. The plane went into the Potomac River, where there's a search and rescue operation tonight. American Airlines says 60 passengers and 4 crew members were on that plane coming in from Wichita. CNN reports 3 soldiers were on the Blackhawk.
And we do know at least 4 people survived. Here's a video from the observation camera at the nearby Kennedy Center showing the moment of the collision. You can see the 2 sets of lights appear to collide and then that explosion. Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas says the passenger plane took off from Wichita. We're still trying to learn tonight where that helicopter was coming from and going to. Joining us now on the phone is 9 News aviation expert Greg Fife. What are we looking at on that video? It's kind of harrowing, Greg. What are we seeing?
Well, Alex, one of the main, of course, visuals that you see from the video is you see 2 lights. One is very bright, which is presumed to be the regional jet as it's established on the inbound or the final approach to the runway. And then you see a smaller, like strobe light that is encroaching and approaching that aircraft, and then they collide and you see the large flash. That smaller aircraft, of course, is the Blackhawk helicopter. And now the question is, why were they at the same place at the same time? I've pulled down a lot of data and radio communications, and from early indications, air traffic control at National Airport gave permission to the Blackhawk helicopter pilots to lift off from their Army pad and pass behind the regional jet. The question is, why didn't they clear the regional jet? And there's a lot of questions regarding their operation and night vision goggles and where they were looking and traffic collision avoidance procedures.
Greg, how much of the positioning of those 2 aircraft is the responsibility of air traffic control on the ground? How much responsibility or even capability when they're in the air is in the hands of the pilots?
That's a very good question. In this case, you have a military helicopter. Unlike commercial airliners, private jets, and a lot of general aviation aircraft, where we have a system called TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System, where it's picking up a transponder code, so it's seeing airplanes that are transmitting that radio code that an air traffic controller would see on radar. It's transmitting it onto a device in the aircraft and shows you position, it shows you altitude. Military doesn't have that. Some of their aircraft do. In this case, it's a Blackhawk helicopter. It's military. The question will be, was this aircraft outfitted for just, flying in the civilian environment versus a wartime environment where you wouldn't have any of that kind of equipment? But you would expect that air traffic control, once they gave permission for the helicopter to lift off, they would have watched the aircraft either on radar and or visually. Since the weather is good, they can see the traffic from the tower cap. It's also incumbent on the pilots to maintain what is called see and avoid. So, you should be on frequency. You should be hearing other aircraft that are talking to the tower. And as a pilot, you're listening to those other aircraft to see if, in fact, they are cutting across your approach path or in your airspace, because they're talking on the same frequency to the tower. That's going to be a big question. What were the air traffic controllers doing? Why weren't they monitoring? And what were the military procedures lifting off? Because that is a very busy corridor. I grew up there, and there are helicopters flying low level all the time over the top and underneath the approach paths to Reagan National.
Greg, can I ask you, I think sometimes we tend to, if we're amateurs about aviation safety, kind of group together anything that ever goes wrong in aviation, whether it is domestically or internationally, whether it's civil aviation, commercial aviation, military aircraft that have issues, that kinds of thing. And when you look at it like that, it feels like we talk about crashes with some frequency. Can you talk to us about how rare it is to have what appears to be the total loss of a passenger jet from an American carrier?
If you think about when we've had the last major losses here in the United States, back in 2001, where we lost an A300 Airbus belonging to American Airlines when the tail came off and crashed in Queens. We had in 2006 a CRJ, similar to the one that crashed tonight, crash in Lexington, Kentucky, killed 49 out of 50. And then we had in 2009 Continental Express in Buffalo, where we lost the aircraft and everyone on board. It's very safe. The system, when you look at the number of aircraft in a 24-hour period here in the United States, we're running almost 50,000 flight operations of all aircraft in a 24-hour period just in the United States. And you can pull that up and actually look at it through the DOT FAA website. We run as many operations here as basically the rest of the world does in the same period of time. And so when we look at the safety aspect of it, we are extremely safe. Mid-air collisions amongst big aircraft are extremely rare events. The last mid-air of substance was PSA and a Cessna 172 in San Diego. And then, of course, we had back in the 50s the famous mid-air over the Grand Canyon, but we didn't have all of the technology we have today. The very unique thing about this is the fact that we have a commercial airliner and a military aircraft. They don't have the same traffic collision avoidance systems. It's a military aircraft. They need what they need for the job or the operation they're conducting versus civilian military or civilian aircraft operating in a civilian environment. And that, I think, is going to be a key focus of this investigation is, are we going to require the military to at least provide an electronic signal so that civilian airliners, when you have a mixed traffic like that, can see and avoid each other both electronically and visually.
Greg, let me ask you, in the days and the weeks to come, as the FAA investigates, and I know blame will be placed, we're trying to figure out how this happened. I just can't help but think about the 60 passengers sitting on that plane. Was there anything that the pilot of the commercial plane could have done, or was he just kind of a lame duck? This just happened so fast, they didn't know what was happening.
Alex, in this particular instance, based on the data that I've pulled, they were less than a mile off the end of the runway. They were established on final approach. They were inbound to the runway. And based on the communication that I've heard and the permission that Tower gave to the military helicopter, and there were 3 military personnel. There were 2 pilots and a crew chief, most likely on the helicopter. They were given permission to lift off and pass behind the RJ. The question is, how did they misjudge their distance? And I mean, because most likely, based on what I've seen and now based on this communication, they hit the back end of the aircraft. So the crew, the pilots of the RJ, would have never known really what hit them because this aircraft was intending to pass behind them, not in front of them.
It's just horrifying. Before we let you go, Greg, I got to ask, it seems like in the past, as rare as these incidents are, they always seem to lead to some kind of significant change, reform, training, technological shifts, that kind of thing. That if it's technology, technology can be changed. If it's human error, then training can be changed. Would it be your expectation that something like that would come of this?
Absolutely. I mean, because that's really the whole purpose, Kyle, of accident investigation, the lessons learned. What is it that we can develop through accident investigation to improve the system? Is this a systemic problem or a one-off? Now, we've had near mid-air collisions in that vicinity for a number of years. And having grown up there, I mean, there is a lot of traffic. And just recently, we had 2 near misses in that same environment. There's been a lot of talk that, they should have closed that airport, but it's convenient to all the people that work on the other side of the river. And so that airport serves a vital purpose, but it also incorporates a lot of mixed-use traffic because the military joint base out there is the staging point, and the Andrews Air Force Base are the staging points for Marine One. So all the helicopter aircraft that pick up the president and the vice president, and then other dignitaries as well as senators and congressmen are also utilizing that transportation. So the big thing out of this, I believe, is that, one, I'm hoping that there's a lot of transparency. Because it is military, they tend to be more guarded whenever there's an event. It's now a military and civilian, so you'll get some information from the NTSB. It may be restricted. But I think that overall from all of this, it's identifying, was there a problem amongst all three pilots or, aircraft, that is, as far as the military aircraft, the civilian aircraft, and then the tower controller. Did they do their job? Were they looking at all the things they needed to be looking at? Were procedures followed? And if there was a lapse, how did that occur with all the technology we have? Because the air traffic controllers have a collision avoidance warning system in the tower cab as well. So again, was the military, aircraft visible on the radar scope? Did it trigger an alert of potential collision? Was a warning given in a timely manner? All of these questions, I think, will then establish, was this just a one-off, or is this a systemic problem that we need, like you said, better training, better equipment on aircraft, better oversight of the system?
Greg Feith, 9 News aviation expert. Greg, we appreciate your time and your expertise. For the folks just joining us, this was a collision between an American Airlines flight coming from Wichita into Reagan at Washington that collided with an Army Blackhawk with 3 soldiers aboard. At least 4 people are known to have survived the crash. Search and rescue going on in the Potomac tonight. If we learn more over the course of this hour, we'll bring it to you here. Otherwise, updates across the networks of 9 News.